I never thought a simple 5-word response would change the course of my entire career, and possibly save my family. James Matthews stared directly into the camera, his weathered face showing the lines of someone who had weathered many storms. If you're watching this, you're about to hear how I almost lost everything because of a workplace policy that forced me to choose between being a father and keeping a roof over our heads. If this story resonates with you, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel. Your support helps share these real stories that too many of us face in silence. The morning it all began started like any other for James. His alarm blared at 5:30 a.m., giving him just enough time to prepare breakfast for his daughter Emma before getting her ready for school. At 38, James had been a single father for 3 years since his wife Sarah's sudden passing from an undiagnosed heart condition. The grief had been overwhelming, but Emma, now 7, needed him more than ever. Their morning routine was a carefully choreographed dance: breakfast at 6:15, teeth brushing by 6:30, hair combed by 6:40, and out the door by 6:50. James would drop Emma at the before-school program by 7:15, giving him just enough time to make it to Westfield Technologies by 8 a.m. sharp. As a senior systems analyst, punctuality wasn't just expected, it was demanded by his supervisor, Richard Harmon. "Emma, sweetheart, time to get up," James called softly, gently shaking his daughter's shoulder. Emma stirred beneath her unicorn-patterned comforter, her dark hair, so much like her mother's, splayed across the pillow. "5 more minutes, Daddy," she mumbled, pulling the blanket over her head. James smiled despite his exhaustion. "No can do, kiddo. We've got pancakes to make." At the mention of pancakes, Emma's eyes opened. Tuesday was Pancake Day, a small tradition James had started to make weekday mornings something to look forward to. These little moments were what kept them going. As they sat at their small kitchen table, Emma drowsily pouring too much syrup on her stack, James's phone buzzed. It was Mrs. Peterson, Emma's regular babysitter. "James, I'm so sorry," the elderly woman's voice trembled. "My sister had a fall last night. I'm at the hospital now. I won't be able to watch Emma after school today." James felt his stomach drop. "Is your sister okay?" "They're running tests." "I'm so sorry for the late notice." "Don't apologize, Mrs. Peterson. Family comes first. I hope she recovers quickly." After hanging up, James stared at his half-eaten breakfast. The childcare center closed at 6 p.m., but his workday officially ended at 5:30, making it impossible to reach Emma in time with the 30-minute commute. He'd have to leave work early, something Richard Harmon had made increasingly difficult over the past 6 months. "Everything okay, Daddy?" Emma asked, syrup dripping from her chin. James forced a smile. "Just fine, sweetheart. But there's a change of plans today. I'll be picking you up from the after-school program myself." "Really?" Emma's face lit up. Mrs. Peterson was kind, but nothing compared to time with her father. "Really? Now finish up so we can get going." The drive to work after dropping Emma off was filled with anxiety. James rehearsed what he would say to Richard. Since the company's acquisition by Verticorp 6 months ago, the workplace culture had shifted dramatically. The new management had implemented strict attendance policies, extended working hours, and reduced flexibility, all while cutting staff and increasing workloads. James pulled into his designated parking spot at 7:58 a.m. As he walked through the glass doors of Westfield Technologies, he spotted Richard already at his desk in the corner office, watching employees file in like a prison warden monitoring inmates. Taking a deep breath, James knocked on Richard's open door. "Matthews. What is it?" Richard didn't look up from his computer. "Good morning, Richard. I wanted to let you know I'll need to leave at 5 o'clock today. My daughter's babysitter had a family emergency." Richard finally looked up, his expression cold. "We have the quarterly reports due tomorrow. Everyone needs to stay until at least 6:30 tonight. I understand the importance of the reports. I can work from home after I pick up my daughter. That's not how we operate anymore, Matthews. You know the policy. On-site work only. My daughter is 7 years old. I can't leave her alone. Richard leaned back in his chair. This is exactly why Verticorp prefers employees without encumbrances. Your personal problems can't become company problems. James felt heat rising in his neck. My daughter isn't an encumbrance, Richard. She's my child. And this is a workplace. Find a solution that doesn't involve leaving early, or there will be consequences. Richard turned back to his computer, signaling the conversation was over. James returned to his desk, hands shaking with a mixture of anger and fear. He had been with Westfield for 9 years, longer than Richard, who had only been promoted to management after the acquisition because of his willingness to enforce Verticorp's draconian policies. Throughout the morning, James called every backup childcare option he had. His parents lived 3 states away. Sarah's parents had passed years ago. Friends were either working or unavailable on such short notice. By lunchtime, he had exhausted every possibility. At 4:45 p.m., James saved his work and began shutting down his computer. He had made significant progress on the reports and could easily finish from home after Emma went to bed. He grabbed his jacket and briefcase, heart pounding as he walked toward the exit. Matthews. Richard's voice cut through the open office. Where do you think you're going? The entire floor went quiet. 20 pairs of eyes turned to watch the confrontation. I told you this morning, Richard. I need to pick up my daughter. Richard walked toward him, stopping uncomfortably close. And I told you to find another solution. The reports aren't finished. I'll complete them from home tonight. That's not acceptable. James took a deep breath, aware of his colleagues watching. Many of them had families too and had faced similar impossible choices under the new management. Richard, I've been with this company for 9 years. I've never missed a deadline. I've worked weekends and holidays. I've come in sick. But my daughter needs me today, and I'm going to be there for her. If you walk out that door, don't bother coming back tomorrow, Richard said, loud enough for everyone to hear. The office was so quiet you could hear the hum of the fluorescent lights. James looked around at his colleagues, people he had worked alongside for years. Some averted their eyes, afraid to get involved. Others watched with sympathy or quiet support. In that moment, something shifted inside James. All the accumulated stress, grief, and frustration of the past 3 years crystallized into perfect clarity. He thought of Emma waiting at the childcare center, probably watching the clock, wondering if her father would appear. James looked Richard directly in the eyes and spoke 5 simple words that would change everything. I'll peek at her anyway. Richard's face contorted in confusion. What? You said if I peek at my daughter again, I'm fired. So be it. I'll peek at her anyway. I'll always choose to peek at my daughter. Without waiting for a response, James walked past Richard and toward the exit. He expected to hear shouting, threats, or demands to return. Instead, there was only silence, followed by something unexpected, applause. It started with a slow clap from Diane in accounting, then spread across the floor until nearly everyone was standing, applauding his choice. James didn't look back as he pushed through the doors and headed to his car. His hands were shaking, but not from fear, from relief. For the first time in months, he felt like himself again. The drive to Emma's childcare center was a blur. His mind raced with practical concerns. How would he pay the mortgage? Where would he find another job? How long would his savings last? But beneath the anxiety was a surprising sense of peace. He had made the right choice. Emma's face lit up when she saw him enter the childcare center. Daddy. You came. Of course I did, sweetheart. I promised, didn't I? He knelt down to receive her enthusiastic hug, breathing in the scent of her strawberry shampoo. Mrs. Wilson said sometimes parents get stuck at work and can't come on time, Emma said as they walked to the car. Well, I got unstuck, James replied, helping her buckle her seatbelt. That evening, after a dinner of macaroni and cheese, Emma's favorite, bath time, and 2 bedtime stories, James sat at his kitchen table with his laptop open. Despite everything, he intended to finish the reports. Not for Richard or Verticorp, but because it was his work, and he took pride in it. At 11:30 p.m., just as he was putting the finishing touches on the last spreadsheet, his phone rang. The caller ID showed a number he didn't recognize. Hello? James? It's Catherine Winters. Catherine was Verticorp's regional director, Richard's boss. James had only met her once, briefly, during the acquisition. Ms. Winters. This is unexpected. I've just spent the last 4 hours in an emergency meeting with HR and legal. It seems there was quite a scene at the office today. James closed his eyes. I apologize if... Don't apologize, Catherine interrupted. I'm calling to apologize to you. What Richard did was not only against company policy but potentially illegal. We don't threaten employees' jobs because they need to care for their children. James was stunned into silence. The truth is, Catherine continued, several employees have filed complaints about Richard's management style over the past few months. Today's incident was the tipping point. 3 different people recorded his threat on their phones. I didn't know, James managed. No, you wouldn't have. Richard has been creating a culture of fear, which is exactly the opposite of what Verticorp stands for. Contrary to what he told you, our company actually prides itself on work-life balance and family-friendly policies. That hasn't been my experience since the acquisition, James said carefully. And that's part of what I'm calling to discuss. Richard has been terminated, effective immediately. And we'd like you to consider taking his position. James nearly dropped the phone. I'm sorry. Your personnel file shows 9 years of exemplary service. Multiple promotions. Consistently positive reviews. And today, you demonstrated exactly the kind of leadership and integrity we value. You stood up for what was right, even at personal risk. I was just being a father. And that's exactly the perspective we need in management. Someone who understands that our employees are whole people with lives and responsibilities outside of work. James looked down the hallway toward Emma's bedroom door, adorned with colorful drawings and a princess nameplate. I appreciate the offer, Ms. Winters, but I'd need some assurances. I'm a single father. My daughter needs me. Of course. The position comes with flexible hours, the ability to work from home when needed, and a significant salary increase. We also have an emergency childcare program for employees that I'm frankly appalled Richard never told anyone about. By the time James hung up the phone an hour later, his life had taken yet another unexpected turn. He had a new position, better working conditions, and a renewed sense of purpose. But most importantly, he had stood his ground when it mattered most. The next morning, as he made heart-shaped pancakes for Emma, she looked up at him curiously. Daddy, are you still going to work today? You look different. James smiled. I am going to work, but things are going to be different now. Better. How? Well, for one thing, I'm going to be able to pick you up from school more often. And sometimes, I'll be working from home, so I'll be here when you get back. Emma's eyes widened. Really? Every day? Not every day, but more days than before. And you know what else? There's a special place at my work now where kids can go if their parents need help. So sometimes, you might come to work with me. I can see where you work. Emma bounced in her seat. You sure can. And I can peek at you anytime I want. Emma giggled, not understanding the significance of his words. That's silly, Daddy. As they finished breakfast and prepared for the day ahead, James felt a weight lifted from his shoulders. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, it never was for a single parent, but for the first time in years, he felt like he could be both the father and the professional he wanted to be. 3 months later, Westfield Technologies under James's leadership had transformed. He had implemented flexible scheduling, remote work options, and created a small on-site childcare room for emergencies. Productivity hadn't suffered, in fact, it had improved as employees no longer lived in fear or struggled with impossible choices between work and family. Word of the changes spread throughout the industry. Other companies began to take notice and implement similar policies. Catherine Winters used Westfield as a model for other Verticorp acquisitions, proudly pointing to their improved retention rates and employee satisfaction scores. As for Richard, James heard he had taken a position with a startup known for its brutal hours and high turnover. Some lessons, it seemed, were harder to learn than others. One Friday afternoon, James left the office at 3 p.m. to attend Emma's school play. As he settled into his seat in the elementary school auditorium, his phone buzzed with an email. It was from a journalist wanting to interview him about the workplace changes he'd implemented and how they had affected both the company's bottom line and employee well-being. James smiled as he declined the call. The lights were dimming, and Emma was about to take the stage as the sun in her class's production about the solar system. Nothing was more important than this moment. As Emma delivered her lines perfectly, beaming in her yellow costume with rays made of construction paper, James felt tears prick his eyes. Sarah would have been so proud of their daughter, and perhaps of him too, for finally finding the courage to stand up for what truly mattered. Later that night, as he tucked Emma into bed, she asked, "Daddy, are you happy at your new job?" James smoothed her hair back from her forehead. "It's not really a new job, sweetheart. It's the same company, just a different way of doing things." "But are you happy?" James thought about it. "Yes, I am. But not because of the job. I'm happy because I get to be your dad and do work that I care about. And I don't have to choose between them anymore." Emma nodded solemnly, as if this made perfect sense to her 7-year-old mind. "Good. Because I like when you peek at me." James laughed and kissed her forehead. "I'll always peek at you, Emma. No matter what." As Emma drifted off to sleep, James reflected on how a moment of crisis had led to unexpected blessings. His simple, honest response, "I'll peek at her anyway," had not only saved his job but had created ripples of change that extended far beyond his own family. Sometimes, the most powerful statements weren't grand declarations or carefully crafted arguments, but simple truths spoken from the heart. In a world that often forced impossible choices between career and family, James had refused to choose. And in doing so, he had changed not just his own life, but the lives of countless others who would no longer have to make that choice either. The story of the single dad who calmly stood his ground against an unreasonable demand wasn't just about workplace policies or corporate culture. It was about remembering what truly matters in life and having the courage to protect it, even when the cost seems too high. For James and Emma Matthews, that courage had made all the difference.